Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. It's 6:30 a.m., March 15th, and price of Bitcoin currently at 54.20. Okay, so we did see a movement back up overnight, and it looks like probably it was just weeding out some late shorts down here. All right, so let's look at the market and let's see exactly what's going on. Okay, all right, so let me turn off the pivots here. Okay, so we're looking at a 15-minute time frame. All right, and as I told you guys a few days back, okay, which was that if you don't see a clean break and a smash with high volume above the neckline, and you see these kinds of games being played right around the neckline, that means that this inverse head and shoulders has pretty much failed. Okay, it's usually just a failed breakout, and it's just kind of going to meander around this neckline, play around, these sideways games this whole time, and then usually it will go to the downside. Okay. Now, in our community, for the most part, all right, we did not really take any trades in terms of this weekend, because weekends already have low volume. Okay. On top of that, we add to the fact that the past few days have seen incredibly less volume as well as less liquidity. Okay, because a majority of people got flushed out of the market way over here. Okay, so there's really not a whole lot of strength that's going into the market to do anything with this movement. As you can see very well, if you look at the Bollinger Bands, right, they're very much so tightening up right here. This is all tightening up. Okay, and if we start going on the, let me see here, the 1 hour time frame, right? You could see the 1 hour time frame is showing you a better indication of the Bollinger Bands that are tightening up. Even the 4 hour right there is showing you that the compression is just starting to happen. Okay, and this is actually a really good sign that the price is actually meeting the middle band right now. Okay, so statistically, right, price meeting the middle band, price meeting the bottom, or price meeting the top of the band, more often than not shows you that it looks like price is either topped out to the bottom side or the upside. Okay, now with that, we can add, say, let's just say pivots, right? We can add these pivots right here. And you can see that we broke above the 15-minute pivot, and we just got pretty much rejected by the R1 pivot, maybe by like $10, $15 or so. Okay, so statistically, you could take a short here, and you can move your stop above the R1 to keep it tight, or you can move it above these highs right here, which is over here and over here. Okay, so you can keep your stop at 5,700 and maybe 5,900 all the way up here, which is this high right here. Okay, so either way, I personally think that shorts are really the only thing that I would look out for. And I know, people say that, oh, well, we've already dropped $2,000 or $3,000 in the last, 4 or 5 days, but that doesn't really mean anything. Okay, here's the thing that you guys need to realize, folks, is that the S&P 500, if you do believe that nowadays, Bitcoin is somewhat correlated to stock markets and it is moving due to the pressures faced in traditional markets, if you do believe that about Bitcoin, that means there's potentially more downside to go. Because here's the thing, okay, there are no risks that have been lifted off the traditional market. All right, number one, we haven't really found new buyers here. Okay, we haven't found new strength. Okay, number two, we haven't found a cure for the coronavirus. And so the impact of the coronavirus across the world and on businesses and their GDP and their supply chain is starting to be factored in. I personally do not think that this drop right here has fully factored in the economic impact yet, nor has it factored in the potential future impact, which is at least 1, 2, maybe 3 quarters ahead on businesses, okay? Because remember that earnings are coming up in the next month or two, okay, for many companies. And again, for those of you who are not familiar with, these terms that I'm using regarding the stock market, all you really need to know is that the stock market so far, though it looks like it has fallen so much, it does not really factor in completely the impact in the economy. And another thing, as you guys very well know, the $1.5 trillion repo bailout that the United States had, and that was, by the way, posted up over here this day. I think it was March 12th, right? And even then, we didn't really move the needle a whole lot, okay? Because I think the market itself is pricing in that we need something bigger, or not only bigger, but we need either more downside or way bigger bailout than what we have right now. Okay, and more often than not, I mean, the Fed's not going to go to like a $10 trillion bailout, which it might be something that we need. Recently on Twitter, Caitlin Long just put out a big thread where she talked about the amount of debt that we've accrued over the last 2 to 3 years. Okay, in the last 2 to 3 years, the financial sector itself has incurred almost, I think, $7.5 trillion of debt. Okay. So $1.5 billion Band-Aid is not enough to fix even one sector, one small sector of the economy. And that's not even the sector that's suffering. Remember that oil companies were the ones that got hit hard, and then airlines and cruise lines were the ones that got hit hard. Okay, so they might be saved, but the overall windfall of the stock market that may be occurring over the next several months is really not priced in my opinion. And so what that means for Bitcoin is I don't think Bitcoin itself will be seen as an asset that people want to invest in, especially in times of a liquidity crisis where all people want to do is get rid of their assets, get rid of their investments, and go into cash. Okay, cash is king in times like this. Bitcoin is not. It is a high risk speculative asset that is clearly seen as, right now is a risk off environment, meaning that Bitcoin is not something that people want to get into because overall the market itself, the economy itself is really showing signs of struggles or, slowly chipping away at the foundation of what we've built so far. Okay. So the fact of the matter is, though you may believe that Bitcoin's precious halving or, whatever event you think that is going to bring up its price, it's not. Okay. If you know anything about how bubbles pop, this is how they pop. And again, I'm not hating on Bitcoin. I'm just telling you the reality of the situation that it is seen as a high risk asset and no one really gives a shit about its safe haven, aspect of it because it doesn't clearly have one, given the fact that it dropped 54% from the high. Okay. If you look at it this way, right, Bitcoin dropped from the mid-February high down to about, oh, actually, it dropped even more. I guess it dropped 66% or so from that high, right? So, I mean, that was a significant drop, okay? So, if we look at this drop and we say, okay, well, Bitcoin dropped 66% and the stock market only dropped 27% overall, right? I mean, what does that mean? It just means that Bitcoin is a speculative asset. That's it. It got sold off like a high risk shitcoin, okay? Again, I'm not trying to hate on Bitcoin or say that, oh well, Bitcoin is going to zero or anything, but it just means that we need to find strength in the economy first, in the regular stock market where people feel comfortable that this is a risk on environment, meaning that things like Bitcoin and crypto will be a little bit more appealing and appetizing for people, who have money to spare. Okay. The thing is, folks, when the economy is doing well, when the stock markets are doing well, people are more inclined to take risks with their money, right? They're inclined to maybe leave their jobs to start a business. They're inclined to maybe, take some risky bets on their investments. And that includes Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is seen as that risky bet potentially. Okay. But when you're in a risk off environment, all you really want to do is start pulling money away, whether it's the stock market, whether it's gold. Okay. If you look at it, right, even gold itself had a big pullback. So if gold had a pullback, if the stock market had a pullback, what makes you think that Bitcoin will not have a pullback? It definitely will, right? And the question really is, well, is this enough of a pullback? I don't know. I mean, here's the thing, right? I put up a chart on Twitter if you guys want to go check it out. All right. I did this chart right here a few months ago, and I explained to my community members that when we were up here moving through the ranges, it was very critical for us to move past this area right here, 10,500. Once we started collapsing under this floor right here, right here, okay, that's around $9,600. That's where I knew that things were about to get rocky. I had no idea this would happen. Okay, that I can tell you honestly. I had no idea this would happen. But the fact that this happened in less than 2 or 3 days, it tells me that Bitcoin was clearly not seen as a investment of any sort when it comes to quote unquote safe haven, or even an asset that is seen somewhat maybe giving you positive yield in a uncorrelated market that is uncorrelated with equities. It's not seen as anything but a risky asset. That's it. That's all I can tell you, because this chart is clearly showing you that when the stock market was going down, Bitcoin went down even harder. And this is what happens to speculative investments. So the point is that, are we bottomed here, or are we going to go lower? So here's the thing. Here's one way to look at it, okay? Excuse me. I don't know why in the mornings I get this like cough. I drink my morning smoothies, but I think maybe that's what the cause is. Okay, so this range high right here and this range low right here. Okay, this is what we created in 2018, right? And I'm gonna show you the importance of this, okay? For the most part, if you look at this range right here, all right, we really utilize this range really well, even on the cycle back up, right? We deviated over here just a little bit and over here just a little bit, but a majority of the time over the last, 2019, 2020, we spent inside this range right here, okay? And so now what we can say is, once we broke out of this range, guess what happened, right? We saw an adverse reaction this bottom side. If we had held right here, I would have said, oh, that's great. We bounced basically off the bottom of this range. But that's actually not what happened. What happened was even worse. We not only smashed through that range, but we rejected climbing back inside that range. If you look at this wick right here closely, look at this wick right here. Okay, I want you to look at the high of this wick. The high of this wick is at 58.73. Okay, and the low of this wick right here from 2018 is 58.55. So a $20 difference or so. All right. The $20 difference speaks volumes of what happened in the last few days, which is that Bitcoin broke critical structure of this range that should have been held. Okay. This whole thing right here, we can now see as a deviation outside of this range. This whole thing we can see as a deviation outside the range. And if Bitcoin is at some point climb back inside the range, then I would say, okay, looks like, all right, now is showing strength to climb back inside the key range. So maybe we could have more upside. More upside meaning we could go up to the middle of the range, which is right around this area. So that's around $8,400. Or we could go to the high of the range around 11.7, 11.9. But that's pretty far away given the fact that we're already under the range and we're only at $5,400. Okay, so we have to be careful and a bit more conservative in our technicals of how we look at this asset now. Okay, so with that being said, your opportunities are as such. Okay, if we start looking at the price action from a 15-minute time frame, like I showed you earlier, statistically you may have a higher chance at potential shorts with stops up here or up here. Again, not financial advice, but that's what I would do. Okay. Alternatively, if you really think that we're going to break up higher, wait for price at least to climb inside this range. Okay, why this range? All right, remember that this was really the consolidation that we had before the breakdown, right? And remember, after the breakdown, we came back, smashed into that same area at the bottom and tested it as resistance and then sold off. Again, smashed the bottom, sold off. So we're not really able to come back inside the range. Once we do, then we can start talking about range high, which is around $6,400. Okay, but until then, I personally think it's a risky bet to think about going long. Okay, especially given the state of the markets right now, right? So, do be careful. I think there's probably going to be more volatility ramping up in the next week or so in the stock market. Today, actually, Vassal and I, our equities analyst, as you very well know, we're going to be doing our Sunday equities video, right? Like we do every Sunday. So you guys will get to see our thoughts and our insight on what we see happening in the markets, just like how we provide updates like this every single day. And we have also a U.S. stock market channel where we discuss, what kind of stocks we're looking at, what we think is happening in the economy, what could potentially happen for the indices over the next few days, few weeks, etc. Okay. On top of that, I told y'all that we are also releasing a forex analysis and a chat channel options as well as oil starting April 1st. Okay. So if I were you guys, I would start joining soon, because as soon as we start adding these new functions in, right at the middle of April or end of April, we're going to start ramping up prices. So if you're not grandfathered in to our current price, you're going to have to pay more money for these new features and new parts of our community. Okay. So take advantage of it, folks. Get the Advantage subscription. That's a nice play on words, right? But yeah, so, again, folks, we provide a lot of analysis. We look at the markets from many different perspectives. And today we're going to go over, the debt that we've incurred in the U.S. economy over the last several years. In our stock market channel, we're going to look at, things like high risk assets like Bitcoin. We're going to also look at, the potential bailout that we're having of $1.5 trillion, how that's going to impact the stock market, if at all. So a lot of things we're going to look at today, and I'm just really excited for the rest of the week because I expect a lot of volatility. I'll be honest, I expect a lot of volatility, and I don't see, in my opinion, the S&P 500 being done anytime soon. If anything, I think we're going to hit this bottom 2018 support for the S&P 500. That's around 2350 points. We're about 400 points away from that right now. Okay, if we're 400 points away from that, and Bitcoin still hasn't hit the kilo of its 2018 right here, that's still another $2,000 plus drop from where we are. So I think it's very possible that we hit that area, folks. I really do. Okay, so again, control your bias. Just because we've dropped so much doesn't mean you have to buy now just because it's low. Okay, it doesn't mean shit. Keep in context of what's happening in the surroundings and the environment around you. All right, understand the things that we put out in terms of our information, like the equities analysis that we do. Okay, and then you will get to see, this kind of stuff being a little bit easier to sort of quote unquote predict. All right, that is it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch up with y'all soon. All right, cheers.